Okay. So last week, no demos because no Lombiq and no Dean. We talked about the community stand-up. We talked about localization, different file formats. Today,
let's have a demo.
Today, demos. Demo 1, demo 2, demo 3, demo 4. Who does demo 1?
I can do it. It will be about monkey testing.
Zoltan. Who does demo 2? Buddy? Like I just are just all here to see you presenting. Okay.
I feel Python.
Demo. Okay, demo. One demo. What else? Dean is not here. Antoine, no demos. But patchy. Fix, I don't have anything, we'll see later. So, code updates, status. Orchard.1. Orchard.1, I will double click. So only one thing, which is this SharpZipLib update by the Dependabot that found a security issue with the version of SharpZipLib we are using, so it bumped it and we merged the PR. So that's it. Then Orchard Core. Orchard Core, I'll double click there for next time. So here we have categorized tenants. So now you can have a category on the tenant and filter by category. And also filter by status. No, this is just the filter that was there that is converted to status, but status and category. Categories. That is what? T of category. What is T? It can't be translations. That does not make any sense. Oh, T. Okay. This is the property. Okay, this is property category of the thing, so that makes sense. They're just renaming. But there is a status search now. Maybe we could filter by status, tenant state. Or there was, but there was only tenant state. Now it's a separate thing, category or tenant state. Okay, makes sense. And when you create a tenant, you can set the category, which is a string. Just to be sure. Category, which is encoded. Space missing, that's okay. Good, thank you, Isham. Change the script task to use Monaco editor. Okay, so the script task now will use the Monaco editor because it's a nicer editor than just the text area or the code mirror editor in this case. More scripts, update documentation version. No, it's update. I miss it. How could I miss it? Interesting. Oh, this is for the main branch. Okay, yeah, the main branch we go into the current dev version. because it's using the, well, this one, yes, needs to use dev, is available on the CloudSmith packages, so we can use that. Yeah, when I did the changes, I was just looking for 1-to-1 to convert 1-to-2. So this one, I will forget next time, also, I'm pretty sure. Update to versions for mkdocs, the ref exception in MediaFieldIndexHandler, because this can be null. Okay. Someone will say if we enabled nullable properties, we would have caught it, probably. But no thank you, because it will be a change that will span thousands of files, tens of thousands of lines of code, and updates, and that's it. Okay, questions, comments on these changes? Nothing there, then the demo.
Yep. Just a sec. And this will be about the UI Testing Toolbox. If you checked out Twitter in the last week, probably you have seen it already, because this will be about monkey testing. Let me share my screen, and you should be able to see it.
We can.
Okay, great. So where are we coming from? When you are developing your software, you are always in the mindset that you actually know what your software is doing, how it works, what the limitations are. And with experience, of course, you learn to anticipate user behavior that is different. But still, for example, in the Orchard admin, when you want to edit a content item, you know that you have to click here. You know that there will be a tiny delay until content items appears here. Once we get to that list, yeah, we have some test contents here. You know that you have to click here. You know that it's a link because, well, it looks like a link. You just have to click once. And for example, here, when you want to save this content item, you also know that you only have to click once here. But a lot of people will actually double click here. And I remember that we had a bug report about this causing issues, or at least a feature request to prevent double clicks here, because it's so prevalent. Now, long story short, there is a difference between what the developer can think of, how users will use a piece of software, and then what users in the real world will actually end up doing. Here's a picture to illustrate the points that I think Milan shared in the Lombiq chat. This is pretty much exactly what happens. So what we have done is we introduced monkey testing. It was done actually mostly by Yevgeny, who is a developer working a lot on automation and automated testing, including his framework, his UI testing framework, Atata. And what we have done is that we have used this gremlin.js library for automated monkey testing. As you can also see on this illustration, monkey testing is about random interactions. So where the name is coming from is the famous theorem of infinite monkeys. You know, you give typewriters to infinite monkeys, eventually they will produce, for example, the collected works of Shakespeare. And the idea is the same thing here. We unleash random interactions onto the software, and it will try to break it. If it can, then we found the bug, we fix it, and next time, for the next time, it will serve as a regression test. Also, as I think Milan illustrated it, we are going back to monkey. So how does this work? Let me open up the corresponding solution. So we have a samples project for the UI testing toolbox here. It's up on GitHub, linked, documented, so I'm just quickly showing it. And here we have an example for monkey tests as well. It's supposed to be very easy to use because the point is that you use this for features that you really want to break, and there shouldn't be well, anything apart from random interactions there. There will be a lot of implicit checks done. Because what we see here in this test class is the easiest version is that you just test one particular page that will do these random interactions on just that page. If it leaves the page, it will stop. And since it's random, well, every time it will be, or it might be different, and to be able to produce deterministic, repeatable results, it's also possible to provide a random seed, which we have done here, or which you can also do in this monkey testing options for multiple tests. A bit more involved is, for example, this test or this one. You see it's calling something recursively. This won't stop if it leaves a certain page, or if it leaves the page it starts with, and will continue to test every page until it either finds a bug or if it runs out of time, because you can also specify how much time it will spend on a single page. And if it leaves that page and comes back to the same page, it's still from that same time. So eventually it will run out of pages. And now this doesn't contain any explicit assertions. So how it can find bugs is by breaking the app, causing server-side exceptions, causing client-side exceptions, stumbling on 404 pages and stuff like that. These are things that we all check automatically for. So let me actually run that and let's see what it does. But I pretty much spoiled the whole thing with the GIF. It's how it starts is like a standard UI test. First, it runs the setup, but by the way, you can also utilize auto setup in these tests. And if you have multiple tests, just as before, it can reuse the same snapshot from the site that you have run the setup for. Yeah, so the setup was now done. It will open the page, which will be pretty much a standard blog page or blog site with the default theme, and it logs into the admin. And then chaos ensures. You see it clicks everywhere, it pans, touches. Yeah, it eventually clicked on that privacy consent box. It left the page, went over to another page. It's still clicking everywhere. It can also open the menu, of course. And this goes on until, as I mentioned, the time runs out, which in the case of this particular test, I think it's altogether about 1.5 minutes. So pretty much this is it. Of course, it's not a silver bullet. So this is for features that you want to break and where you really want to check whether you thought about all kinds of interactions. Theoretically, if you wait enough, it will test everything in the app. So this is the ultimate test. You don't need anything else. Of course, we don't have that much time. So you really need to focus with these tests. And for most features, you will still need manual tests. I mean, manually asserted tests where the test just does what you tell it to do and it asserts on things that you specifically want to assert. For everything else, there's monkey testing. Thank you.
How many bugs have you found?
We found one in Orchard. It was a 404. We didn't report it yet. In both of the, no, in all three of the applications where we started to use this, it found some bugs.
And so you mentioned on Twitter that you could also type stuff.
Yes.
So here, when it's clicking everywhere, is it typing something also? Not randomly.
Yes, if it finds a form field, then yes. You know, the interactions are random, so there was a field for the content item filtering in the example I've shown, but I don't think it actually tied anything there, because well, it just didn't happen in that run. But if you unleash it on a form, then and you give it enough time, it will type a lot of random things in there and try to post it, try to use the drop downs, all the form elements.
I think I asked also, I asked, I'd love to see it changed to type XSRF strings to see if we miss some encodings or double encodings. Like you type some JavaScript and you check that the JavaScript can't be found somewhere on the page. It's a different tool, but it's related, right, to be able to do that. And I'm sure some people have these tools, like security researchers.
Yeah, there are such security scanners, I think the category is called. Yeah, it's a related thing, but a bit different. This is not about security. It can find security issues, but the main point is not about security, mostly about validation and the UI, of course, the correctness of the UI and the correctness of the links and buttons and everything. I think that would be a tool that specifically generates such interactions. I think that's something that would possibly be suitable to be integrated with UI testing.
Why is the window moving? Is it like drag and drop moving the frame or the pane? I don't know. What's happening? You see what I'm talking?
Yeah, I don't think the window itself moved, but it does move the page around. One of the random interactions it does is panning, you know, as on a touch screen. That's a simulation, because well, moving the content around can also cause issues if you happen to well, implement a bug like that.
Okay, I know that the code we have would move when you do that.
Yep.
So yeah, as you said, it's not with a single mouse gesture that you get that, but yeah, I didn't know it would move. Interesting. And the yellow circles are when something is typed after a click or whatever. Okay.
Yes, and also when something's clicked. By the way, when it finds an issue, the test will fail as usual. A test would fail on, as I mentioned, when there's an exception server or client side, or when there is an HTML validation error, there's an accessibility error if you turn it on. And you can replay the whole thing then locally. You can also make it slower if you actually want to understand what's happening. And the last interaction that caused the test to fail is also logged. So those are the things aiding debugging once it actually finds a bug.
Instead of random chars, can you set the list of chars that you will send?
That's a good question. I don't know, but Gremlin is quite configurable. And in this monkey testing options, you can also configure it. Specifically, I think this would be here. The terminology here is that these little things, yeah, that do the random interactions are here. But I think probably you would be able to configure this typer and well, provide the character set.
And maybe also in the form filler to provide some JavaScript code or XSS injection thing or SQL injection stuff, just to see if you can find it later.
Yeah, I think this would be possible. Although I again would probably do that more methodically. So for each of the form fields, it would try everything, make it less random. But that's an interesting thing to evaluate.
Good, looks good. Yeah, I've seen a few people file issues on libraries with fuzzy tools that will try to use an API with different inputs and then catch exceptions that are not supposed to be thrown, and then file issues with that. Like, I don't know, if you have a regular expression parser, then it will try to generate so many things, and then you will get an error for exception, and it says, oh, you're not supposed to have an error for exception, so maybe this string will trigger a path in your code that throws that, and it's not supposed to, so fix it. Interesting.
Yeah, this is kind of fuzzy testing as well. So if you can also do fuzzy testing in code, of course, in unit tests. So that's this is quite a related idea.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Questions, comments? Share my screen. So Zoltan /Yetkin. We don't have the theories today to start topics. Does anyone have questions? Want to talk about something? What's new this week? 20 years of .NET. Only 5 at .NET Core. New websites.
Unfortunately, the one we are working on, we can't tell about.
Yeah, you just did. Now you have to go on and say everything. So you are working on your website. That's good. The big one.
Yep, and it will be also for a huge company. I don't think there will be much of a public part of it, though.
Okay.
It will be all out. It will be on the public internet, but authenticated. We'll see.
Well, great. Intranet then. Interesting. I don't know anything about any new site, my side. And yeah, so yeah, on the repo, someone filed an issue. See if I open the repo. Edge updated, so it tells me that updated. What should call? Oh, 602 released today. So this morning it was 601, and then I ran something, it was 602, so it's very new. Nothing here to talk about. So there is a user who filed an issue in SQL because they were doing some perf testing. I don't think it's there actually, just in SQL. So what they did is create 2 million content items, and the admin page was taking more than 1 second, so like between 1 and 2 seconds, which is slower, but that's good, like, because I'm sure that in Orchard.Web, when we created multiple millions of content items, it was taking more than just 1 or 2 seconds, and we isolated the issue, so I'm creating a fix in SQL to optimize that. So that should be better after, like, you see the numbers after that. And there was another thing that is.
So sorry that it was an issue in YesSQL then, and not in how Orchard queries it.
Because query was normal, but it does a distinct, because the idea is that when you have an index, you might have multiple rows in the index that point to the same content item, the same document, in this case, the same content item. So when you do a query and new page, so we have content 1, and then let's say you have index 1 and index 2 that points to the same content item. So when you do a join, you will have that thing here. You will have 2 rows because of the join, okay? This is documents, and then you have 2 rows. So imagine that you have actually more than 1, 2, but you have like 20 rows. And you want to select the content items that match this index, but there are 20 in the database that match it. So you just have 1 content item to load. So you have 20 rows here. But you don't want 20 times the same content item in your list, in your result. You just want it once. So what YesSQL does, it does a distinct. Somehow in the query, like select distinct star from document inner join the index, something like that. Okay? And then it does a limit. There is a limit like limit 1 or limit 10 because it's paging. And that's why there is a distinct. Otherwise, you say, oh, give me 10, but it gives you 10 items, but these are the same content items. You don't have 10 content items, you just have 1 in the end, even though you said limit 10. So there are 2 options here. Either the query does a distinct, or you do it in multiple phases, like you say limit 10, and you see that you only have 1 distinct in memory. So you emit another limit with an offset, like, okay, now offset 10. Okay. And you do that again and again and again until you have 10 content items. So that works, but the issue is that it's tricky with the offset, because the offset, I think, doesn't work exactly on each row. So because, yeah, I think it didn't work when I tried that. So that was one way to do that. And the other way, yeah, was to use a distinct. So use this distinct. The issue with the distinct is that it will in memory try to create the concatenation of all the things that you load, like all the properties of the document, including the JSON, and then it's slow. That's why it's slow. So yeah, I have a fix pending, almost done. One that is not working. So that's one of the issues. So that's typically inside YesSQL that we can optimize the query. Another way to fix that is to say select ID only. And then it's just loading the content item IDs. And then after that, you have select from document where ID in, and then you have the list there of the thing that you selected before. And that's something that was done actually at first in YesSQL in the first versions. It was doing 2 steps. First step, load the document IDs that you want to load from the index, and then load the documents from their IDs. But yeah, and what it also allows is to have a different storage for your documents. Like you could have the documents in a blob storage or in a file system and just have the index in SQL. But assuming that everything is in SQL means that we can do joins, and it's much faster than just one round trip with a database. So that's why it's doing it this way today in a single step. So that's another option. Put it in 2 steps, or make it 2 steps opt-in or opt-out. And same thing with distinct. If you know that your query won't have any multiple indexes, per document, then you don't need a distinct, right? And in the case of the query that is in the admin, it's like listing all the content item index by type, using the content item by type. So there is one type per content item. So distinct is not necessary in this case. So I think that's the option I chose, like to be able to opt out of distinct, like saying, yeah, I can optimize. I can give you a hint in the query that you don't need to optimize for distinct, and then it's super fast. I actually don't remember how I fixed that. Probably that, making distinct optional or detecting that distinct is not necessary, something like that. You can detect it if when you ask for a page of content items and you get 10, you ask for 10, you have 10 and they are all unique, then you say, yeah, it's fine, there was no issue. But if you get like 10 rows, but just 9 content items, you are like, okay, there is an issue. So let's run distinct. So that there are ways to do that. Details. So yes, not in Orchard, in SQL, but only solutions at that point. 2 million rows, that's interesting. 2 million content items, that's interesting.
Did they say how they generated it? Because that would be an interesting tool to include.
Maybe I asked, I don't remember. If you were to do that, you could do it with JSON recipes, generating the recipes and loading them. That's a way. But if you can just create one SQL query in a for loop, I mean, that's super easy, even in a SQL Server. Like create a for loop that generates things that are just one document table and one index to update for a content item, at least without parts or whatever. If you want to generate more complex stuff, you will need the recipe. Like a recipe generator, like generates files of 50 content items and then run that, even if it's just a memory and not just a file. That's how I would do that. Could be a mod. Actually, that would be an interesting module, right? That when you enable the module, you can provide some information about data you want to generate, like the types, and it will feed with random data. And I'm sure you've done some modules like this already by the past, based on dictionaries that will create these content items and these parts. Even if it's just known parts, or you can provide a template somehow for the JSON document to create with, oh, inject a fake name here, or inject a fake color here. If you see what I mean, like, imagine you have a text area and you can provide, you render something like content item ID. Here you could say, oh, here inject a grid. It's not how it works today, okay? It's not a grid, but something like that. And actually, we already have that in the recipe language, like something when you type JS UID, okay? So this is what we have in recipe. So maybe if we can type something like a content item or a document template, such that when it will just generate this document again and again and again, and call save on it, and then all the indexes are populated automatically by SQL because you just save the document. And it can be of different types. So in this case, a content item, but it could be also, I don't know, user, all kinds of documents you want. You just have to say, this is one template, generate that. And when it is for like display text, because you want to give it a title, you can say, I don't know, JS, name, something like that, okay? And probably something like generate and then a string, which might be the type of thing like color or whatever, random. I'm sure that would be easy enough and super useful to be able to have a generate a template like this. Well, be able to type a template or change a template and then say how many items you want. tell 1 million and it will generate 1 million content items. But that might be useful. For sure would be useful when you want to do some integration tests. And maybe also, oh, save the recipe. And it will just generate the files in a zip file and something like that you can reuse and push as a recipe. That might be interesting to reuse all the parts that we already have today. Generating recipes, executing recipes, saving them, generating them. That could be an export step. It could be an export step that generates random content. So you could even, from one instance, publish random documents to another instance or locally, because you can even execute while deploy to your local system. So that might be even better. Lots of possibilities. Other questions? All good. All good. Thanks, everyone. See you next week.